So दादा मैं इससे स्टार्ट करना चाहता हूँ कि आपको ये बिजनेस की आइडिया आई कहाँ से? बिकॉज इट इज़ अ वेरी यूनिक बिजनेस वेयर यू गिव कैमरा एंड ऑल द मीडिया एक्सेसरीज ऑन रेंट. So this is one of a kind business in Pune and the first one in Pune, I must say. तो ये आइडिया कहाँ से आया आपको?
Okay. So it's a slightly old story.
Okay.
2008 में मैंने photography पिकअप की.
Okay.
My parents accidentally bought me a DSLR camera instead of a mobile phone.
Okay.
And then I started my journey in photography. In 2012, early 2012, I bought a third-party lens, a lens for wildlife.
Okay. Okay.
And I had done a lot of research, but finally I realized that I had made a wrong choice. The lens did not work the way I had thought it would.
Okay.
And I spent some time on technique and understanding how it works and all of that, but still I did not get the results I thought I would after spending that amount of money.
Correct, correct.
And then I started looking at options where I could have tried the lens first instead of just going and buying it, spending so much money. And I realized that there is no option like that in Pune. I hunted in Mumbai, there was nothing like that in Mumbai.
Oh.
Mumbai gave you the option of renting only for people who are connected to the film and fashion industry.
Oh, the big names.
The big names, you had to be either a reporter or a fashion, connected to the fashion industry or the film industry.
Correct.
They would not rent to a complete stranger.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is where I saw hope that there was space for a business model which would give people access to equipment on demand whenever they want it, for whatever duration, and regardless of who they are.
Got it. So that's how Primes and
So
Zooms
that is how
was.
Primes and Zooms began.
And what amount of capital did you require in the initial phase? कि क्या लगा आपको, कितना पैसा लगा to set up this? I mean on a small scale.
So I started with 2 cameras.
Okay.
And
That's it.
about 6 lenses.
Okay.
I put all my PF money that I got from quitting my job into this. So the initial investment, I'm guessing, was about 10 to 12 lakhs.
Okay.
After
Much
that,
less than what people are spending right now on education.
Absolutely.
Abroad
Absolutely.
or something
Yes.
like that.
Yes. And from there, then I did tap a lot of banks for finance. None of them believed the story. Most of them laughed in my face, saying it's not a model that will work. One camera gets stolen. How do we recover our money?
Yeah.
The second thing is, some of them laughed, saying, these are ridiculous rates. Nobody is going to use cameras these expensive. So anybody who was not connected to photography didn't understand that camera gear is expensive.
Yeah.
And then, so traditional sources of finance obviously didn't work out. I borrowed what I could from family, but mostly what we've built is on the basis of reinvesting whatever we made.
Wow. And it's working really, really well, I must say.
Thank you.
Because it's very unique business, first of all, and it has helped a lot of local photographers and filmmakers who want to do something,
Correct.
I mean, you just said that you invested all your PF money. So you did a job. I mean, you are an MIT graduate, you did your engineering, you did a job for say 10 years approximately. What made you quit the job and come back and start something of your own?
Okay. So I'm an engineer by training.
Yeah.
I worked for 2 years in the software industry because the mechanical engineering industry in 2000 was in a terrible shape. They were not hiring at all. Software was hiring at that point.
Yeah, it was a boom.
It was a boom. And then after 2 years in software, I realized I really wasn't enjoying it. So then I decided to get some sort of post-graduation. I didn't want to do an MS because there was never the idea of going to the US and spending the rest of my life there. So the 2 options that were in front of me were to do some kind of post-graduation in engineering or do a management post-graduation. So I took the CAT, I went to IIM Bangalore, did my 2 years of management, and I got recruited on campus by a management consulting firm. So I worked with PricewaterhouseCoopers for 8 years.
Wow.
Now, during all of this journey, with PWC, I had a great time. I learned a lot of things. It was a demanding job. It's a dream job for a lot of MBAs even today.
Yeah.
But what I realized is, as I went up the ladder, things became less knowledge oriented and more management oriented.
Correct.
So at the entry levels, you do a lot of work in terms of telling clients how to run their business, understanding their problems, giving them solutions. As you rise up the ladder, you become a regional manager. You end up spending a lot more time managing people than working with clients.
Yes.
It works like that way in any organization.
Any
and I realized I wasn't really enjoying it. I had a fantastic boss, a fantastic set of teammates, but I took that call of sort of quitting the job and giving this startup a shot. So 2012 May, I resigned from PWC. I moved out, and by July I had started setting up the website for Primes and Zooms and getting the first equipment order in place and so on. So I think it was a combination of wanting to do something else.
Correct.
And having spotted an opportunity because I was already doing photography. So it's just a lucky intersection of those two things.
Wow. And how did you get the initial customer base? Because this idea was unique, not heard of.
Right.
So first of all, you'll have to build a community of yours where people who use cameras on a day-to-day basis or on some retail level, not a filmmaking level.
Yes.
So how did you get the initial customer base running in?
So the whole of the first month, I did one rental.
Okay.
And it was a friend who took pity on the fact that I had no customers at all. And but I think I was lucky to meet a few very good early customers who spread the word very fast. They're still in Pune. There is a group called Photographers at Pune. Okay. Which is used to be very active in those days, still is active. So they spread the word. I met people like Suhas Desle and Ram Balmur and Soumitra Inamdar, and these were people who quickly recognized that this is a great idea because they were very good photographers themselves.
As they say, great minds think alike. Not all of them.
So their support was phenomenal. They spread the word very fast. A lot of people from P@P came in just to see what this is all about, and they saw that it's a good idea. They need not spend on expensive lenses. They can just rent something whenever they need it. So that is how the word spread. And so yes, most of our initial publicity was purely word of mouth. So we did not do any. Even today we do very little by way of advertising.
I hardly see any.
There's hardly any traditional advertising we do. The only thing we rely on is customers telling other people about us.
I totally understand. And now the first month was just one rental. What was your family's reaction when you, because it is, I must say it is a very tough decision, especially after 10 years working in a corporate life, you get out of it and start thinking of start something of your own. Kudos to you for that thought. But family ka kya reaction tha?
So when I quit my job, my second daughter was just born.
Okay.
So she was 3 months old when I quit.
Phase, I must say.
So my wife was very supportive. She's like, I trust that you'll do the right thing. I know there is no doubt in my mind. It's okay. There'll be a few initial hiccups. We'll probably struggle for a few years, but it's okay. I mean, it's not a big deal. We can manage. My parents were a little surprised. They're like, you have a perfectly good job. You have a good company you're working for, you have good qualifications. Why do you want to keep all of that aside and do something that doesn't really require your qualifications? And my argument was that if I'm going to be running a business, I'm going to be running it like a person who's trained in management, not like somebody who has no formal training in how to run an organization. All these years I've been telling clients how to run their businesses, and this is the proof of the pudding, right? It is
correct.
Whether all the advice you gave out all these years was good or not only depends on how well it works for you.
Definitely.
So my father initially was a little skeptical. He said, okay, let him waste a few lakhs if he wants to. He'll at least learn something out of it and
then get back to life.
Then whatever he gets back to. My mother was supportive, and my older daughter frankly was too young to have anything to say about it.
Correct.
But yes, I think largely my family was cooperative. My friends were a little skeptical. Some of them had the trust that if this guy is doing something, he'll do it well. But most of them were a little shocked. What are you doing? My MBA batchmates, for example, were a little surprised. Why are you giving up a perfectly good life and starting to struggle at this point in your life?
Correct.
So I don't think I faced too much resistance in the way a lot of people do. By and large, people around me were supportive, and I think that played a large role in me being able to focus on building the business.
What was that year which you think changed the future of Primes and Zooms? Or where you clearly saw momentum and you started believing in your own vision more?
Okay. So I think one key point or one key milestone in that journey was the hiring of my first teammate. Kapil joined us, I think, in 2013.
Okay.
So for a year, it was just me.
Correct.
That was the first point at which I felt,
It was a tough year financially.
It was a tough year financially as well as physically, because I was working every single day of the year.
Correct.
And there were no fixed timings. After I got the first teammate in, I realized I now needed fixed timings and holiday calendar, etc., etc. So that was one milestone where I felt if somebody else is willing to work with me, then there is something in the idea. The second milestone probably was when we sort of crossed 1,000 rentals in a year. So that told us that there is momentum, there is something. And the third milestone I would say is when the OEMs started taking us seriously, when people from Canon wanted to come and meet and see what we were doing.
Wow.
When people from Nikon wanted to come and see what we were doing. So earlier in the chain, when I started out, a lot of dealers were also skeptical. They just ruled out the idea. Forget discounts, we don't even want to deal with you, kind of thing.
Correct.
Because obviously they didn't understand the business. So when OEMs started paying attention, that told us that there was some validation of what we were doing. And the team and I were very proud that somebody from Canon Mumbai has come down and met us. So at least there is that level of recognition that is happening.
I think it is because of your validation towards your, if anybody wants to rent out any accessory, you do a background check of that client,
Right.
That person. And once you are verified in primes and zooms, only then you can rent it out.
Right.
So that you make all the ifs and buts clear and you tick it out of the list. And then I guess they didn't understand that. So tell us about that. I mean, how did you get into that validation thing? Because that is a key thing, I think, which makes your business authentic, and all the queries which other people had, that कोई चोरी करके ले गया, कोई भाग के ले गया, 2.5 लाख का कैमरा है, तो वो रूल आउट हो जाता है.
So to a large part, I think my training in PWC
I was about to say that it is somewhere linked to your background.
So I was in PWC, I was working more on helping clients restructure their processes, put in IT systems, change processes in a way that IT systems would be able to work with them, etc.
Correct.
So the process orientation was there right from the beginning, and I realized that instead of no client likes to be told that I think you're not a good customer.
Correct.
So the only way out of it is to have a process rather than bring judgment into the picture.
Correct.
If you can lay down a process saying if you meet 1, 2, 3 requirements, then we're perfectly happy to work with you regardless of who you are, how much money you make, where you live, and all of that.
Correct.
So that was the first level of sort of putting a structure to things, and initial customers appreciated it. Even today, OEMs come down to meet us more because they are awed by the fact that we were able to put a process to this very chaotic industry.
Correct.
And so I think that is what really helped us in the long run. It did make life a little difficult for us because most customers would come back and say, loan lene ke liye bhi itna sab nahi karna padta.
Correct.
And in my mind, I am thinking, if you default on a loan, you have the whole world to protect you.
Correct. Here nobody's there to protect.
There's no protection. People will ridicule me for giving an expensive camera to somebody without even checking who they are.
Correct.
So it was difficult. We put a lot of customers through some hardship, saying, give this, give me that. We need more documentation, or we need a reference, etc. But by and large, I think most people have understood. Most people sort of realize that for it's a small price to pay for not having to pay a deposit.
Yeah.
Because most other people work on deposits, or even if you want to rent a car, you will have to put up a deposit, etc. So I think most of that sort of helped.
Wow. And tell us about your IIM journey, because now that you were in one of the esteemed organizations where multiple and many people think that I should be there, I should be associated with any IIM I can. So tell us about your journey with IIM and what did you get out of it, because many people, we don't find IIM graduates in your direct contacts. So now that we have found you.
So the IIM journey was definitely transformational in the sense that I went in an engineer and I came out a management graduate, but more importantly, I went in with the typical fears of an engineer. Why will somebody listen to me?
Okay.
If I have to approach the CEO of a company, why will he even give me any time? But when you've gone through that journey, when you've worked with those professors of that caliber, when you worked with batchmates who've been selected from the best in the country, it automatically broadens your horizons. It sort of breaks down a lot of fears that you have in terms
Definitely.
it does, the label does open up a lot of doors, but beyond that it gives you the confidence of dealing with the world. It tells you that yes, you have passed a certain filter, you will talk sense when you meet somebody important. So that confidence, I think, is something all of us need in life. I was lucky enough to be able to go through that journey and get that confidence. The other thing it helped is in sort of training me to think about possibilities.
Yeah.
Training me to think about, rather than accept the status quo, why can this not be like this?
Correct.
Usually we don't bother, we don't ask why or why not.
Correct.
And
these are the most important questions.
Absolutely. And I think that entire atmosphere of the IIM, I went to IIM Bangalore, by the way. So all of that instills that sense in you of that willingness to challenge the status quo. Why can this not be any better?
Correct.
Why can I not do this differently?
Yes.
And having an open mind. Maybe there are valid reasons for it, but at least let us find out what those are.
Definitely. And when you get into these, I mean, I have heard this and I know this because of few people I know, very few. But the alumni of IIMs are so well connected.
Correct.
That it plays, I mean, you enter a community, you just
Very
don't
true.
graduate from there.
Right.
If you tell your batch to any ex-alumni of IIM Bangalore, he will just be in touch with you or help you
Very
out
true.
anywhere
Very true.
possible.
Very true.
So how do they build this strong alumni? I mean, because it is not, I mean, this potential is every college in Pune or
It has
Mumbai
that
or any,
potential, correct.
every college can do this. But I don't know, somehow they don't
They're not able to
entertain it more
correct.
and focus on the alumni and how can we help them and how can they help us in both the ways. But IIM has that and IITs also do.
Correct.
So
Correct.
how does this work?
My take on it is that one precondition for that kind of bonding is that it should be a residential course.
Yeah.
When you are living day in and day out for 2 years with the same set of people, a certain set of bonds automatically are created.
Develop. Yeah.
That's one. Second is you get bonded to that place because you're staying there for 2 years.
Correct.
Any place you stay for 2 years, automatically you have certain memories
bond, yeah.
associated with it. So that is the physical part of it.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's a legacy. I will not say that there is any credit that I should be taking for that alumni network being strong. It's just something that happens. So it's probably the initial set of alumni who've set up that legacy saying this is how we are. One of the advantages of getting into a premier institute is that you will have a set of people who've passed through this before you and are willing to look out for you in the world. They're willing to open doors for you. They're willing to give you advice. If you approach an IIM alumnus, very rarely will he say, no, I don't have time for you.
Yeah.
Right? So that comes from that legacy. And now that I have come out of it, I know that this legacy exists and this is something I also have to live up to.
Correct.
If a junior comes and says, I need some of your time, I cannot tell him you don't matter to me or you're not important enough for me to give you time or any of that. It's by default that I have to start figuring out how do I help this guy. So a lot of it is legacy and most institutions are not able to create that legacy. They're not able to create that. Engineering colleges, for example, local engineering colleges have been trying very hard to create that kind of an alumni network. With COEP, they've been able to achieve some success because they've got a long line of alumni.
Correct.
Newer colleges find it harder to do.
But even though, to be frank, I don't find it that in depth or the seriousness is not that much in the COEP alumni as it is in IIM or IIT.
It's probably also because the batches are much smaller. So the intake at my time for 1 year at IIM Bangalore was 180 students.
Okay.
So one
Very
class
less,
divided into 3 divisions
That's
of
it.
60 each. That's it. Now with larger divisions, obviously those connects become less close.
Yeah.
There are more people. It gets scattered.
Okay, now I also wanted to ask you that who do you look up to? Because this is a one personal question. and everybody has somebody who you look as a role model or the person who inspires you. And I'm talking about because in today's world, I find inspiration from Harvey Specter, who is a fictional character who is not even real. But something. Tell us about your role model or inspiration which you have always looked up to, who has motivated you in your journey.
Okay. So when I was between my engineering and my MBA, I read a book by R.M. Lala.
Okay.
It was titled Beyond the Last Blue Mountain.
Okay.
It is actually a biography of J.R.D. Tata.
Okay.
And that had a deep impact in terms of how companies should be run.
Okay.
What should senior people be like? How should they approach problems? How should they approach people? And Tatas, obviously, as we all know, have a huge legacy. Of being very progressive in their management, in their thoughts, in the areas that they work in, etc.
Definitely.
And I think J.R.D. Tata was one of the greatest Tatas after the pioneer Tata himself. And he did a lot of things in a very typical J.R.D. way. He had a certain sense of ethics. He had a certain sense of what is right and what is wrong, and no compromise between the two.
Correct.
So that book and those thoughts had a large impact, because I was immediately after that I was just getting into management.
Correct.
Beyond that, there have been various people at various points in my life who have sort of had an impact, or have tried to learn from them. And it would be an injustice for me to name a few and leave out the others.
Correct.
But yes, a lot
so
of
we
people.
can say there were multiple people and not one.
Absolutely.
In every stage of your life.
Absolutely.
And it must be like that, because a person in the interview before said that every small person can motivate you every day.
Totally.
So why be motivated with only one person?
Correct.
You can be motivated with several of them. And
In fact, there are so many things I've learned from people who are younger than me.
Wow.
I'm blessed to have a set of friends who are all younger than me by at least 5 years.
Okay,
And
so you remain young.
I keep being struck by how different their thoughts are. We do a lot of sessions in colleges to just give them introduction to photography, and I'm always struck by the completely different concerns that they have, or the kind of thoughts they have, the brilliance that they show. So yeah, I completely take your point. There is the potential to learn from everybody.
Everyone. Dada, what is your vision with primes and zooms in your 5 years or 10 years down the line? Where do you see it, and what's your vision behind it?
I think the fundamental vision is to keep solving customer problems.
Correct.
It's a very broad thing to say, but that is the primary drive. I will qualify it further by saying keep solving customer problems in the areas of content creation. So today, or when we started, largely it was still content that was being created, and we tried to solve those problems. Going forward, as video explodes, more people are going to be shooting video, and not everybody needs large production teams.
Yeah.
So currently, for the next 5 years, the aim is to help everybody who wants to create video to be able to do that.
Correct.
And to be able to create good video content, technically good content.
Correct.
Be able to create motion in their videos.
Yes.
Or have stability in their videos where it is not there, etc. So we see a large group of people who come from non-video backgrounds, who are not formally educated in shooting video, or your team, for example.
Yes.
Your people who are doing this out of a passion.
Yes.
And my objective is to help people with that passion to solve their equipment related challenges.
Correct.
Or give them technical guidance. Make sure that I can enhance their production values.
Definitely.
So that will always remain the driving objective. The way we do it, or the medium for which we do it, could change. 5 years down the line, video may sort of decline and some other format may come up.
Correct.
So the objective is to keep helping people create better content.
Keep changing as well.
Yes.
And it is the perfect time, I must say, because when you started it in 2013, YouTube was just being introduced and people were watching YouTube videos. But now, as you see, we are into that perfect generation, or the perfect time, I must say, where your idea, whomever didn't trust you at that point of time, will trust you now, because now it completely makes sense, because even a 10th standard pass out wants to do a motion video.
Correct.
Or has a passion to present himself, market himself.
Right.
So that works out for every one of us.
Right.
We wanted to know that how many people you started with and what is the strength of primes and zooms right now.
Okay. So I started with one person, myself.
Correct.
For a year it was just me. Today we are at about 14 people.
Wow.
And we are still looking for hiring more people. So
that's really great.
Typically, I think for the last couple of years, we have worked with a team strength of about 16 people.
Wow, that's commendable, and that's huge success, I must say. Because getting your own family is nothing like that. Because
absolutely,
the one who starts with who considers himself as a first team member, definitely for him it is a family and not a corporate team or my sales team and such things. So kudos to you. Now, talking about the positives, I also want to highlight about because the journey looks really great, but I want to know about the negatives and how did you deal with the criticisms at that point of time, at the early stage, or maybe the first 2 years, I must say, because that was your growing stage.
Right.
So how did you deal with, or how should one deal with the criticisms about your own vision? Do you doubt yourself? Every day there is a self-pity, self-doubt, and then again, yet you become what you are.
Correct.
So what about that?
So yes, criticism will be there if you try to do something different. It is not because, you have to understand this, it's not because people are fundamentally opposed to you. There will be a few people like that probably, but most other people who are neutral are criticizing you not because they are enemies, but because they don't see what you see.
Correct.
Right? And that is what we call vision.
Yes.
Unfortunately, most of us only look at the people whose vision got validated.
Yes.
We don't see the thousands or millions of people whose vision failed for various reasons, whose visions were flawed to begin with. So this criticism is important because it forces you to validate your vision repeatedly at different points in time. It is a sort of course correction for you. A lot of entrepreneurs are dreamers by nature.
Correct.
And a lot of us get carried away thinking that what we are dreaming of is exactly what the market needs. And obviously it doesn't always work out like that. So I think take criticism as a filtering mechanism, as a validation mechanism. A lot of the times the critics are right.
Correct.
They may be criticizing not your vision entirely, but the way you have chosen to implement the vision.
Definitely.
So in our journey, I think we've always seen it like that. Because the most criticism that came in the early part was around what are you going to do if somebody runs away with it? Right?
The main question.
The main question. But we realized that in terms of sheer statistics, the odds of somebody running away with your equipment are low. What you really need to worry about is people damaging it and not paying for it.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different thing that we realized.
This will come to know only by a person who has the vision for it and not the person who is trying to understand the idea.
Correct. So the trick is in realizing that yes, theft is a problem. Your critics are not wrong, but they may be wrong in the extent to which you should be worrying about it.
Correct.
So that is for the entrepreneur to figure out himself. What is the level of importance that you attach to that criticism?
Were you ever worried that if this idea gets copied or somebody starts a similar or same kind of business just next to you?
Yes. There is always, even today, there is that thought at the back of the mind. And I keep telling my team, if we don't do a good job, somebody else will do a better job and throw us out of the market. So again, that is something that you should convert into a drive.
Initially I find this very closely related to Amazon also, because when Amazon came in, there was Snapdeal and Flipkart as well.
Yes.
But just the vision which Jeff Bezos had was way bigger. He was able to sustain it with the good customer reviews and customer results compared to Snapdeal and Flipkart. Snapdeal got washed out, but Flipkart was survived because of the Walmart acquisition.
Yes.
So now Flipkart is again, I can say,
they're finding their feet again.
They're finding their way back. But again, the vision plays a big role, I think. Dada, what are your thoughts about the current education system in India?
See, the current education system no doubt has progressed a long way from what it was when I was in school. At the same time, yes, there are gaps between what we should be teaching children and what we are teaching. Those gaps will always remain. The school system is not that agile because of its scale, because of its size. It cannot quickly adapt to changes in the marketplace, and it should not, is my view, because the market keeps going up and down in terms of the skills it requires.
Correct.
Something that you require today, 2 years down the line, you don't need those skills anymore because something else is required.
Correct.
Schools cannot work like that, because if you start teaching a kid in the 5th or the 6th standard saying, I am training you for this skill, by the time the poor chap passes out, there's no market for it.
Correct.
Right? So yes, we should be giving our children the basics. More importantly, we should be teaching them to think.
Yes.
Rather than forcing them to learn certain things, they should be taught to ask questions. They should be taught to think for themselves.
The whys and why not should be well implemented or incepted in their minds in the childhood itself.
Unfortunately, our culture to a large extent prevents it. We discourage children from questioning their teachers or their parents. We do not like it when a child asks too many questions or sounds arrogant, saying, you're not right, you're wrong, it is not this, it is this. But I think we need to learn to encourage that and be open to it when our own children start questioning us.
And what are your thoughts about the current youth of the nation and their parents are more focused on getting jobs or getting placed somewhere, even though they go for a college? Right. Many of them have a wrong motivation that if I go into IIM, I'm getting placed for sure.
Right.
So just for that, getting into IIM is a wrong motivation according to me. So you should be more focused on getting the management skills and the network there rather than more focusing on the job.
Yes.
So is this thought process killing the entrepreneurial attitude in the today's young generation? And it is both ways. I mean, from the students and their parents.
I don't think it is killing that attitude. See, unfortunately, we are a country of 1 billion people.
Yes.
Right? We do not have opportunities for everyone. So there is no question that there will always be the pressure for finding some means of earning a livelihood.
Correct.
Before the generations that came before us, those sources of livelihood were very limited. You had to have a certain set of skills. You were either an engineer, doctor, or a commerce graduate, and you found a specific job in a specific role.
Correct.
Today, a lot of those barriers are broken down. There are a lot more opportunities for everybody. Yet, we don't have opportunities for 1 billion people.
Correct.
So, anybody going into the education system is going to have that as top of mind concern. Saying, once I'm out, how do I pay for my livelihood? How do I pay my parents back for my education? How do I start earning, building a career, building assets for myself? How do I start saving for a house, saving for a car, etc.? The second point is, not everybody has the entrepreneurial bent of mind.
Yeah.
So just picture a scenario where somebody who's not really cut out for the entrepreneurial life starts a company of his own, goes through all of that misery, destroys a lot of value, destroys the careers of the people who choose to work with him, and finally has to shut it down. It happens.
Yeah.
So for that reason, you do not want everybody to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, there should be a balance.
There should be a balance. You have to figure out if it's the life for you. But what everybody does have the choice to do is to treat even your job as an entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that
think
rarely happens.
Act as if you own that department.
Many
or
corporates
that
don't know the end-to-end business of their own company.
Correct. So when you bring that approach, to that extent, I would say yes, everybody needs to have that spirit.
Yes.
Only when you start thinking like a business owner in your own job, will that company progress much faster.
Definitely.
Right? So I don't think education is killing the entrepreneurial spirit. If anything, we are seeing more and more entrepreneurs come up. And I would say all of these are just variables.
Yeah.
Somebody's education, like in my case, my education helped me become an entrepreneur because I understood commerce better despite being an engineer.
Correct.
In some cases, education doesn't help.
Yeah.
Finally, I believe that each of us has had more or less equal opportunities, especially if you live in an Indian city. You cannot claim to be underprivileged today. Everybody has enough exposure, enough opportunities. It is about what you make out of that combination.
I think it is just the lack of introspection in your own life.
Yes.
Just think about because many people usually see those who are meant to do jobs and love that life and they can give it and they want a secured life. they should enter it. I mean,
Correct.
if that kind of sector goes down, many jobs will anyways, the economy will go down.
Correct.
So there should be a balance. There should be a
Absolutely.
military, a person who wants to join
Yes.
the forces,
Yes.
the person who wants to work as an employee. Because again, if we become entrepreneurs, who is going to work
Who's
for
going
us?
to work? Correct. Very true. Very true.
Again, I think only the lack of introspection. You should introspect more and think about what you will want to do and what you love to do more.
Correct.
Dada, lastly, I would like to ask you, how would you personally define success? What is success to you?
Okay. Earlier in my career, success was probably money.
Yeah.
A little later,
For most of
success-
us, it is.
It is. A little later, it is probably recognition. So when the CEO of Canon knows about primes and zooms, it's a
That
big
is
deal
more
for me.
important than money.
Yes. So, but now I think as I get into my mid 40s, I'm at a point where I think success is basically whatever makes you happy. You know, different stages in life, there are different definitions of success. The only caveat is do not be ruled by what other people think is success. As long as you are meeting what you think is your parameter for success, it's perfectly fine. You don't have to become a big business. You don't have to become a very rich person. You don't have to own a luxury car. You don't have to own a large house. None of that. It is finally about what gives you satisfaction, what gives you happiness. If you have that, you're successful. If you are master of your time, you know, if you can say today I choose to do whatever I want to do, and you're able to do that, I think you're successful.
Wow. Never have I ever heard about such amazing definition. So thank you for giving your time, and it was
thanks,
amazing talking to you and getting all the insights. And I think in this particular talk, I got to know multiple things which I've never heard about, or a perspective which I've never heard about. So I just want to congratulate you for giving all the local photographers, filmmakers a chance that, you know, you can do a motion picture and you are going to help them out.
I think it is they who are giving us a chance.
I know,
So-
but still, it's your idea, your vision. So I just wish you all the best for all the future amazing things which are coming your way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for giving your time, and thank you for sharing.
Thanks
your
to
journey.
your team as well,
Thank you.
and all the best to you.